Knom chimua Sara. Knom chisa Panaik Jolana. Knom Mokbi Prote Australi. Knom Sabajet Daiban Jubnek. Culture has played a big part in the intervention that I expressed in my case study. I was in Cambodia on Go Global, and a large part of building rapport with the clients was to be able to speak a little bit of Khmer, which is what I just did at the start if you didn't quite understand where or what I was saying. A large part of culture was in the way that we spoke with the supervisors at the Centre for Veterans International, as well as where the way that we engaged and the types of interventions that we gave or spoke to with our clients. So with my patient, he was 12 years old, and he was a boy who was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and he really wanted to be able to go to school. Now, in regards to the school that he was currently at, they didn't have the resources to be able to support his learning, and this impacted on his ability to actually attend school because he was quite far behind. I worked very closely with this boy and his family, and I made sure that in regards to client-centered practice that I answered any questions that they may have had. Also, I ensured that I gave them ownership of seeing the school themselves. There was a specialised school that would be able to support him. So I found out that information from the supervisor. But in regards to culture, it's very hard to get things going where I was at. So when you did want to do an intervention with a client, you then had to go and speak to the head of physio and say, this is what you'd like to achieve with your client. He would then think about it and deliberate and may speak to other people about it, and then they come back to you with an answer. So more often than not, it would be a lot more waiting for them to give an answer than to actually just have the person say, yep, that's great, go for it with your intervention once you've provided your clinical reasoning. I found it very frustrating because I only saw my patient for a couple of times, and a lot of the time I did have to try and talk to my supervisor at VI and state what I would like to achieve for this child. In the country that I was at, it's very cultural to not give away a lot of information, and if you are, they don't just tell you information, you need to ask and then they will give you the information. So I found that quite frustrating because I had to be able to draw as much information as I can from the staff at the placement to then go forward and source out more information regarding it to then relate back to the family about the school. So an example of this was I spoke to the supervisor regarding the name of the school and what the child had to be able to do in order to be deemed appropriate or eligible to go to the school. And all he said was independent in washing, independent dressing, independent feeding. And so I went and I worked on those three things with the child. It was very hard though, particularly with the washing, because it's not culturally appropriate for a female to see a male washing, and especially for a child. So I did have to try and work with the interpreter to try and discuss that to make sure that it was a culturally appropriate thing. Another thing that I found frustrating was after I'd worked with the child on these things, I then spoke to the physio and he turned around and said, have you worked on washing clothes? So that was another thing that, withholding information and not telling information immediately did impact on my ability to work with my client. But I think definitely in regards to culture, working on the rapport building was a big positive, and that was definitely through speaking some words of Khmer was definitely appreciated and opened up the families to talk, because talking and communication isn't the largest factor that happens in this country, purely for the fact of the contextual history that they've been through. There's a lot of distrust of various people, so that's impacted on my intervention.